Hi, hello, this is Sir Danny, and I'll be taking you through parts of a cell and then their functions. I believe that you're going to enjoy this lesson. Alright, so let's move ahead. Now we have to understand that for every living organism is made up of what? Small, very small units, and that's what we call what? Cells. It's just like a building. You see, if you see a very huge building erected, you would realize that it is the individual blocks that was put together one after the other that ended up as the whole building. In the same way too, human beings, as we are, or any other living organism, started out as a small thing, and then it began to increase. Another one will come and add, another one will come and add, and then it continues to increase. Now we call that small thing that begins for every living organism a cell. That's why we are saying that a cell is what? The smallest unit of an organism, or we could say is the basic unit of what? Living things. You could also say that a cell is what? Is the building blocks of living organism. In other words, a cell is what build up a living thing, whether plants, whether animals. The individual components that come together to give you the whole structure of a living organism is what we call a cell. Take for example human beings. It's been discovered by scientists that human beings are made up of trillions of cells. And you know, you and I began as a single cell in what? In your mother's womb. In our mother's womb, you begin as a single cell, very tiny, and then as time goes on, you grow, you multiply, divide, multiply, divide, and then it grows up to give you you as you are seeing yourself now. So because of that, it would be right to say, or it's the same as saying all living things are made up of what? Cells. Now let's know that there are some organisms that are made up of only one cell. So you could imagine how tiny these organisms will be like. They are just one cell, So we call them what? Unicellular. Uni usually implies one. Unicellular, so one cell organism. So examples are amoeba, bacteria. That's why you can't see bacteria with your eyes. They are just one cell, very tiny. Euglena as well. Plasmodium is also just one cell. And I'm sure you know, you may have heard of Plasmodium. Plasmodium is the organism that causes what? Malaria. Take note, it is not mosquitoes that causes malaria, it is Plasmodium. The mosquito will rather carry this Plasmodium, and it is the Plasmodium that will cause the malaria. However, organisms that are made up of many cells are called what? Multicellular organisms. So you could guess where human beings are. You could guess where plants are. We are all what? Multicellular organisms, because we are made up of what? Of a lot of cells. That is why we are bigger in structure. Now, so let's look at the parts. If you take a particular cell, a living cell, what are the things inside? Obviously, you would appreciate that these are very small, so you cannot get the details of a cell by using your naked eye. As I said before, you can't see a cell with your naked eye. You need a microscope to be able to see a cell and even see the individual component inside the cell. So all these studies were done, or they came to know all this part of a living cell through studies by various scientists over the years. So they came to realize that a cell is made up of different parts, and then each part plays a specific role or function. Now we call this individual part or component organelles. So an organelle is a structure within a cell, and it performs a specific function. So let's look at some of the parts. So we have the nucleus, cytoplasm, vacuole, cell membrane, cell wall, mitochondria, and then chloroplast. all these are a cell. So the first one, nucleus. If you look at the diagram, you would see that the nucleus is a spherical structure which is usually located closer to the center of the cell. Perhaps it being closer to the center would sort of give an idea as to what it does. So it contains what we call chromosomes which carry a genetic material called DNA. DNA carry characters from parent to young one. In other words, DNA are materials which will determine how you will look like. So what happens is that you carry the DNA of your mom or your dad inside your cells, and then this DNA will now determine how you are going to look like. And because you are carrying the DNA of your father, you will then look like your father. So this DNA is a very, normally when people, they call something paternity test. So this is a test which is done when there is a debate or an argument or a concern about who is the true father of a child. So what they do is that they go into their cells and then they check their DNA, because if you give birth to someone, if you are the father of a child, the child will also contain your DNA in their cells, because as we said, DNA carries what there are materials which carry characters from our parent to the young one. So aside that, the nucleus is also responsible for controlling and coordinating all the activities carried out in the cell. So a nucleus is like the class prefect in a class. It just coordinates all the activities in a cell. So take note, controlling and then coordinating all activities carried out in a cell. It is also responsible for what we call cell division. Remember, I told you that you started out as a cell, then your cell begins to divide. The nucleus plays a major role in how the cell divides. Now let's also look at what we call cytoplasm. So if you look at the diagram, you realize that around the nucleus there is this space which is filled with fluid. So the fluid medium which is around the nucleus and then the other organelles, that's what we call cytoplasm. So we are saying it's fluid because it's normally liquid and then there are some gases inside it dissolving it. So but it is mostly water. It's just water then with some substances dissolved in it, like food nutrients, enzymes, minerals, hormones. Now the function, if you look at the nature of it, you can guess its function is to help in the transport. Because it has a watery medium, substances are able to move through from one part of the cell to another. And also because of its watery medium, it also serves as a site for a lot of chemical reactions in the cell. Now let's move on to what we call vacuole. So vacuole is also an enclosed space. Take note, vacuole is different from cytoplasm. Although all of them are fluid, as it were, all of them, cytoplasm is a fluid, but the vacuole is a space which is also filled with fluid, and it also contains lots of water with other substances such as sugar, minerals, and all that. It may also sometimes contain pigments, dye, which gives color to flowers, the petals of flowers. And also it's very large and permanent in a plant cell. So it gives you the idea that this particular organelle or component is only found in plant cell. It's mostly found in plant cells. If you are going to, it's not that prominent in animal cells. It's not that prominent as compared to plant cells, where you always have it. In plant cells it is very large and it's always there. Now what it does is that because it's also water based, it contains a lot of water, it's able to help control the amount of water in the cell. This is what it does. If the water in the cell gets too much, what it will do is that it will just release some out to the environment, and then in case the water is too small too, it could also take up water from the environment and then help balance and make sure that the cell has enough water. It also stores food substances such as sugar. Yes, so it could use also its fluid medium to store food substance. Now cell membrane, it's also made up of what we call protein and fat. If you look at the diagram, that is a wall or the covering around the cell. So it's almost like a fence wall around a house, and you know what a fence wall would do. So a fence wall will certainly prevent people from just walking straight into your house or into your room. So that's what the cell membrane does. They also, so we say they control the substances which enter and then leave the cell. But let's take note that they are partially permeable membrane. So it means that they will allow some substance, but they will not allow. And of course, you would guess that this is for good. You can't just allow anything to enter your cell. What if it's a poison? So just come and poison your cell. So it only allows. So that's what we mean by partially permeable. Or in other books, they say semi-permeable, meaning it's permeable to some extent, but it's not all. Now let's go to the cell wall. Now cell wall is also a part of a living cell, which is normally found around or outside the cell membrane. So there's a difference. Take note. There's a difference between cell membrane and then cell wall. The cell membrane covers what? The cell as the first wall, but there is an extra wall around the cell membrane called cell wall. However, this cell wall is only limited to some cells, usually plant cells, or in some bacteria you see cell wall in addition to it. So if you look at the diagram carefully, you realize that we have cellulose cell wall, then the cell membrane comes after the cell wall. Now take note that as for the cell wall, unlike the cell membrane, it is not partially permeable. It allows everything to just pass through it. It allows everything to just pass through it. Now its function is to give strength and support to the cell because of the cellulose. Cellulose is a tough material. It's found in the cell, so it gives support, shape. Now mitochondria is also one organ very important. It has a double membrane. If we check the diagram, realize that it has inner membrane, outer membrane, so it gives it a double membrane. Now we refer this to as the powerhouse. There's a reason why we call it the powerhouse, because that's what produces power in code for the cell. Power in this case, energy by respiration. If your respiration is a process in which living organisms produce energy, and this happens within what the mitochondria. So normally you would have cells that require a lot of energy for their activities. They tend to have a lot of mitochondria. For example, sperm cell that is needed to fuse with egg from the woman and produce a baby. Because they have to swim, they require a lot of energy. So because of that, sperm cells contain a lot of mitochondria, as well as muscle cells. Muscle cells are involved in movement, you walking, so they require a lot of energy to do that. Because of that, they also have what? Mitochondria. Now chloroplast is also an organelle found only in plant cells. You will get to understand why. So chloroplast contain a green pigment called chlorophyll. Take note, there's a difference between chloroplast and chlorophyll. Chloroplast is the organelle, then it contains a pigment called chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is a green pigment inside chloroplast, and the function is that it absorbs energy from the sun. So, and this energy is what is used for plant cells to undergo what we call photosynthesis. That's how come animals don't undergo photosynthesis, because they don't have this organelle. They don't have chloroplast, which contains chlorophyll to absorb energy. Alright, so please, you could try out these following questions, and then so what is an organelle? Explain why there are a lot of mitochondria in the muscle cell, the major component of cytoplasm. What is chlorophyll? Say the function of cell membrane in a cell. Why is a vacuole important in a cell? Of course, you know why. What is the role of a cell wall in a plant cell? Explain why animal cells would undergo photosynthesis, but plant would not undergo photosynthesis. Okay, so thank you all. See you later on.